You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your website, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at rahardin.com. That's the World Wide Web at rahardin.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Get ready to fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage. Over.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you. I'm not flying solo tonight, but Russ Gallo is not hanging with us. He is still celebrating a tremendous win for the Republican Party and for Donald Trump. Joining me, our resident hack, political expert extraordinaire, Amanda Kohut. Amanda, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Gene. How about you?
Oh, I'm still basking in the afterglow of one of the most improbable results in election history.
I did not see it coming, Gene, and I will be the first to admit, as your resident Rhino hack, I was wrong.
Oh, it's on tape. It's on tape. Oh, I think we lost you. Hang on a second, man. I'm going to bring you right back. I think the call kind of got disturbed there because she admitted she was wrong. Let's get her back on. Amanda's coming back on right now, hopefully. But listen, we got a great show. Amanda, you back with us?
I'm back with you.
Okay, back away from the mic a little bit. You're a little hot, but let me get the rundown of the showdown for everyone so everybody knows what's going on. Amanda and I are going to be breaking down elections 2016 into a million pieces. We're going to talk about how and why this all happened. We're going to talk about the media angle and the comeuppance of the arrogance of media. And then we're going to do a little bit of a fantasy cabinet and see who we want in charge of the executive branch in various agencies within the federal government. But first and foremost, Amanda Kohut. First of all, you said you were wrong and then the phone collapsed. I don't know what happened there, but that was pretty apropos. Because you did not see this coming at all, did you?
No, Gene, from day one, I said that there is absolutely no way that Donald Trump could win this race. At all.
I know. Repeatedly, by the way. You said that.
Repeatedly. I said, this man is the antithesis of what I considered, and I say I now, rather than we, I say I considered presidential. I have always perceived the president to be much more in control of words and deeds, more diplomatic, and I walked away realizing that maybe the country did not necessarily agree with his words, but there was an overwhelming sense of the need for a shakeup in Washington, which I think is one factor that led to the results on Tuesday. Another factor were there very serious and real concerns about Hillary Clinton's treatment of classified materials and her perception that she was above the law when it comes to the handling of said material. But also, I think that most mainstream Americans were sick and tired of having pejoratives constantly thrown at them, because the Clinton campaign spent the entirety of the past year and a half lobbing pejoratives at Trump and his supporters. And I know that there are millions of good people out there who do not appreciate being told that they are racist or sexist or misogynist or xenophobic. They had valid reasons for
and you know
for
what, though,
voting the way
Amanda?
they did.
You are only scratching the surface of this, not only the significance of the victory, but how this victory came to be. You know, when you get down to it, the one thing that you mentioned first, and you know, we'll jump right into it. Liberal hubris, I guess we'll call it, or as Reverend Al calls it, hubris. Hubris. I can't do it the way he does. But there is this, and you hit on it, the disdain of liberals, especially, you know, what we call the limousine liberals that run Washington. The disdain that they have for flyover country. The areas in between New York and LA that they never visit unless they need something out of them. The Rust Belt has been talked about so much in the media lately, and how they miscalculated the Rust Belt. And I think, Amanda, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, the voters who put Barack Obama into office for 2 terms are the people that shifted over to Donald Trump. When they're in favor with Democrats, they are considered to be blue-collar, hardworking Americans. When they are in disfavor with the Democratic Party, they are racist, uneducated hicks. And that's what happened here, in my opinion. That's one of the main factors. The liberal hubris towards the Rust Belt.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, when I think about this in particular, I'm thinking about Pennsylvania, because I think about Pennsylvania as coal country. These are people who not just coal, but also the Marcellus Shale. These are people who have a lot of dependency on natural resources and the energy sector for their means of living. And I think about the message that the Democrats have been sending out during this campaign about, you know, climate change and the need to switch to renewables and the horrors of coal, and the fact that there are states that don't want to exploit the Marcellus Shale. You know, I think that those people in Pennsylvania were sick and tired of being told that they couldn't make an honest, decent living. And they felt very alienated by the message that the Democrats sent out. And here comes Donald Trump, and he's just talking about blue-collar workers and about building infrastructure and increasing our energy output and production. And that resonated with them. So I think, you know, in hindsight, when I look at the results in a state like Pennsylvania, I say, you know what? This makes perfect sense.
And you know what? How many times did you tell me, even on election night when we were hanging out watching the returns, how many times did you tell me Pennsylvania is the state that is always teasing the turn but never comes through? But this time around, Western Pennsylvania turned out to vote, those same people you were just talking about, and it turned around the entire election.
Oh, yeah. It's been more than 30 years since Pennsylvania had voted for Republican, and every time the presidential election rolls around, Pennsylvania ends up not even being close. They vote for a Democrat. But I think the difference this time around was that Donald Trump utilized a very populist message, which is contrary to the Republicans' message in years past that has been more focused on being business-friendly rather than worker-friendly. And this is I will admit, this is some very uncomfortable territory for me as a fiscal conservative, as a business Republican, because we don't naturally have a solid relationship with labor, with the workforce as Republicans. So this is a very new message. I definitely think we're seeing the start of a political realignment in having the labor forces favoring Republican candidates. So I'm going to project now that I think that when Donald Trump runs for re-election, I think Pennsylvania will continue to support him.
That's a 4-year-old prediction. We'll check back in on that if we still have a show. But you know what? Here's the thing as well. Did Hillary Clinton even bother to check out a lot of these areas in the Rust Belt? She didn't even go to Wisconsin. Wisconsin turned red this time around. The home of Paul Ryan and Reince Priebus, she doesn't even show up to even try to turn it. What kind of campaign strategy is that? Was it that far in their hip pocket, they thought? Or is this, again, a symptom of the liberal hubris?
I definitely think it's the hubris. They have taken so many states and demographics for granted. You know, they assume that Pennsylvania, that Wisconsin were locks because they had always been locks. So what's the purpose in investing time and money and resources in those states? You know, absolutely hubris. But not just states. I also think about demographics. You know, there's the assumption that African Americans, that Hispanics, that women would naturally be completely on board the Clinton train. And it turns out that Trump won a majority of white women, and he performed better with blacks and with Hispanics than Mitt Romney did.
And you know, this brings up an interesting point that we can talk about as well. The idea that racism played a role in this campaign. Van Jones on CNN on election night calling it a white lash. I'm sorry, but if this would have been Megyn Kelly 4 or 8 years ago saying that the Barack Obama won because of a black lash, we wouldn't know who Megyn Kelly is right now. How?
No, she
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it. If they chopped off her head and stuck it on the top of the Brooklyn Bridge, I would have said, yeah, of course.
I mean,
that's the response. That's how people would have responded to it.
I just don't understand. Okay, so when we talk about racism, again, I opened up my remarks by saying the same voters, the same white, middle-class, blue-collar voters who turned out for Barack Obama, they either turned out for Trump or they didn't turn out at all. But again, in 2008, 2012, those voters are seen, as I said, blue-collar, hard-working, salt-of-the-earth Democrat voters. When they vote for a Republican, they're all of a sudden uneducated, bigoted, misogynistic, racist rubes. It's amazing.
Let me make this point. For the record, I think that across the board, and anyone who tunes into this show would agree that yes, there is racism.
No doubt. We are
not denying that. The fact that the KKK actually played a role in this election, had any significant coverage, is proof in itself that there is racism. The difference is we are not alleging that racism was the driving dominant force for millions of people to make the decisions they did when they went to the voting booth. And it touches back on the point that I made about people are sick and tired of being told that they are being unsensitive and that they're being racist, that they're not being transsectional, that, you know, every possible pejorative that you could possibly lob at someone, the liberals have. And I think Hillary Clinton really doubled down on it when she made her basket of deplorable comments, because you have all these middle Americans who really do feel like they are in that basket because they've been told nothing from the left other than what the left perceives them to be doing wrong, or how the left believes that they think incorrectly. The left has created a very narrow perspective on their view of the world. And I'll also come out and say I think that half of America is actually afraid to have any sort of honest dialogue about race in this country or sexism in this country because they feel reprisal. They believe that they will be retaliated against simply because they have a different perspective.
And that's what Donald Trump was talking about when he talks about political correctness and the whole idea that people are being silenced by the left. Absolutely right. But now let me ask you this, because you brought up the basket of deplorables. Will that phrase go down with history the way that Mitt Romney's comment about 47% went down in history? Was that the albatross around Hillary Clinton's neck?
You know, had it not been for the fact that this race was so turbulent, I would have said yes. But when we look back at, you know, a candidate like Romney, he is so vanilla compared to what we have seen this year and the Clinton campaign in itself was so flawed that I can't just say, basket of deplorables will be the iconic game changer. But it's definitely going to be one of those phrases that people keep in mind along the lines of the 47% or binders full of women.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one too, absolutely. Let's talk about another point, as we're talking about how and why the election 2016 results for Donald Trump and the Republican Party came about. I think that Hillary Clinton and her campaign thought of women as a voting bloc. The way that they think of the black vote as a voting bloc, or the Latino vote as a voting bloc, or here in the People's Republic of New York City, how the Hasidic Jewish vote is a voting bloc. A uniform group that will just vote the same way. Women throughout history, my opinion, and I've done a little research on this, have never been a bloc of votes the way that other ethnic groups have been. And I think that was a major mistake by the Clinton campaign. What do you think, having worked on campaigns and worked in D.C. and being our expert, Amanda? Am I onto something there?
You are. And you know what, Gene? I'm not only going to say that their thinking was incorrect, I'm going to say that they were sexist in thinking so.
Wow. Okay. Go with it. That they were sexist in thinking so. Go ahead.
Yes, they were sexist in thinking so, because what they are saying by saying women have to vote for Hillary Clinton because of solidarity, or because Hillary Clinton feels a certain way about a handful of issues, what they're saying to me as a woman is that I'm apparently not supposed to care about any issues other than 3 or 4, that I couldn't possibly prioritize national defense over abortion, or that I couldn't care about prosperity in small businesses more than I care about birth control. They tailor their message around this tiny little area of public policy and assume that women have no other interest other than those. I think that is incredibly sexist. And one thing I will always pride myself on as a Republican is that we make no sort of assumption, like the Democrats do, about different groups where we assume that they only care about this narrow band of issues. They are regular, hardworking Americans just like everyone else, and everyone in this country has different things that they care about, and it is a shame and a travesty that they generalize groups the way they do.
Absolutely right. Folks, you're listening to Behind Enemy Lines Radio, here from the People's Republic of New York City. I'm Gene, she's Amanda. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be discussing the comeuppance of mainstream media and this election cycle. Oh my goodness, there is so much to talk about on this subject, and we're going to see how media interaction with the public even turned off the voters more so to Hillary Clinton. Gene and Amanda, Behind Enemy Lines, will be back right after these brief words. If you're a long-time listener of the show, or maybe this is your first time listening, you can probably tell that me and the gang here, we like to have our share of fun, whether it's on or off the air. We talk about 2-drink minimum radio and no medication Wednesdays or whatever day it may be. That's why when we found the people at Less Government, More Fun, we knew it was a match made in heaven with this show. Folks, we live in a time where government is out of hand. Our founding fathers did not intend government to be all-consuming in all parts of our lives. That's why we are telling you to go to lessgovmorefun.com, check out the website, check out the swag. What the people want is less government, more fun. Pass it on, make it happen.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save
your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Behind Enemy Lines Radio is all about being right. No, seriously, it is. If you ever listen to Russ Gallo or me go back and forth on some issue, we always want to make sure that we remember who said what and when we said it. That's why we go to GoOnRecord.com. It's a brand new social media website. Challenge people on what they believe, whether it's in politics, sports, entertainment, finance, whatever. There's a category for you at GoOnRecord.com. Check it out right now. Tell us, what do you stand for? It's time for you to go on record.
Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air.
Gene and Amanda, back behind Enemy Lines. You know, Amanda, you got a little bit of that Gallo, anger in you tonight. I'm kind of digging it.
Just a little bit, Gene. I'm still a little bit, drinky drink from election night. That was
hard night. Goodness. Shout out to the Proud Boy magazine election night party where we were invited to. Actually, not only invited, but they included this on the marketing for the party, and over 200 people showed up. Martin Scarelli showed up at this party. It was ridiculous.
Not only that, Gene, he played some of the Wu-Tang album that no one has heard. The one that people made a petition to the government to get the FBI to subpoena him.
How awesome was that? How awesome was that? That was fantastic.
Gee,
yes.
Do you realize we're probably out of this country, millions of people, only 100 now have heard this album.
Absolutely. You know what? And half of us were drinking so much we probably don't even remember that we heard it. Listen.
We just remember it was lit.
Exactly. Oh, the party was amazing. Thank you to Gavin McGinnis and Jack Buckby and all the gang with Proud Boy magazine for inviting us to their launch party and election night party. It was awesome. Speaking of media, and this is a nice little segue, let me set up this segment of the show for you, Amanda. Is it possible that the mainstream media actually prevented Hillary Clinton from winning? Check this out. Media Research Center and YouGov did a joint poll regarding media coverage of the presidential election. Here's what they found out. Now, listen, you're Miss Crosstab, so you can check all this stuff out later at newsbusters.org. One of the great organizations that works for Behind Enemy Lines Radio, they do Behind Enemy Headlines with us once a month. So 69% of those polled do not believe that news media is honest or fair. 78% believe the presidential election coverage was biased. Within that 78%, 59% said it was biased in favor of Hillary Clinton. 21% said it was in favor of Donald Trump. Here's the kicker for me. 8% of Trump voters that responded in this poll said that their vote would have changed to Clinton if they believed what the media was saying about him. That could have changed the election. And finally, this to me is shocking. Of the people polled by Media Research Center and YouGov, 97% said that the media did not influence their vote. I can't believe that, Amanda. That to me is shocking.
You know what, Gene? I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. And I'm surprised that you are shocked.
Well, I'm sorry, but I thought that the permeability of the mainstream media was beyond 3% of at least this sample. But let's say it's 10%. I thought the permeability, especially with the overload of media coverage, I thought that's, a lot more would have permeated through.
But you know what, Gene? It's not the quantity. It's how it was provided. It in drips and drabs. I've never actually seen so much outward bias in the media. And I say that as someone who was vocally against Trump the entirety of this election. Even I do not believe Trump was covered fairly. And just using little examples, I think about Huffington Post. Did you read any Huffington Post articles during the course of the election?
Oh, absolutely. Each one of them came with a disclaimer talking about Donald Trump.
Exactly. How can you possibly credit yourself as an objective mainstream media source and have a disclaimer at the bottom of your article that essentially denigrates one of the very candidates you're covering?
It's unbelievable. And by the way, on election night, Huffington Post tweeted out that, and before the polls even closed, that Hillary Clinton was a 98.1% favorite to win the presidency. My, oh my, how bias will just blind you to the truth.
Oh, I actually don't think there was any bigger perpetrator of bias than Huffington Post, with the way that they did their editorials, with the way they did their polling, and what really gets to me, I had been following pretty closely 538 towards the last month of the election to see how Nate Silver was doing his tracking. And the day before the election, Nate Silver had warned everyone that he was going to give Trump better odds to win than any of the other poll aggregators out there. I think he said that Clinton had about a 65% chance of winning the race. He had a much more conservative take and warned that there was a possibility that the polls had significantly not captured reality, that there was flaws in how they were assessing it. And while he still predicted the Clinton win, he said, but I'm not going to rest my laurels on it. And you know what? Nate Silver once again turned out to be right.
Well, he was the closest to being right. I wouldn't exactly call him right. But, clearly the polling that makes up the Real Clear Politics average, just about, I would say, close to all of them, with the exception of maybe two, LA Times being one of them, they were all skewed way to Clinton. How do you explain all these polls getting it wrong? Was it an issue of the sample? Was it an issue of the phrasing of questions? Or was it something else?
I think it was the hidden Trump voter. And what kills me is that there were several media outlets who wrote editorials saying not to believe that there was a hidden Trump voter. I think Huffington Post actually is one of them. I think BuzzFeed was one of them. I think the New York Times is one of them that said, you're hearing this narrative about there are people who are saying that they're voting for Clinton. They're expressing their disgust for Trump. When they actually get to the voting booth, they're going to vote Trump. And they dismissed that concept outright. And I think that actually very much was reality.
The forgotten voter. The voter, and this goes back to our previous discussion of liberal hubris. The political correctness that was permeating society during the whole campaign. A Trump voter was not going to be shamed and participate in a poll. A Trump voter was not going to engage and be shamed as bigoted, uneducated, misogynistic, homophobic, what have you. The Trump voter refused to partake in the discussion. And when that happens, though, how does a pollster compensate for that? Do you have to create a safe space for polling now?
That's a hard question, Gene. How do you accommodate for the Bradley effect? I don't actually think that that's something that's going to be resolved over the next few cycles, because it's also not something that exists exclusively here. This is something that we also saw with Brexit. Lord Ashcroft, who is their big pollster over there in the UK, also had the same issue. People said that they were going to vote Remain, and he ended up having a breakout Brexit vote. Here's what I think. Here's what I think is going to happen. Here's what has to happen. The media has to eat some crow, and they have to admit that they got this wrong. The New York Times, the publisher of the New York Times put out a letter saying they are rededicating themselves to honesty and integrity of journalism. I'm paraphrasing, of course, which to me is a backwards admission that they did not cover this fairly. Could you imagine the New York Times saying, the paper of record saying that we did not cover an election quite fairly as we should have? There's got to be some crow eating there. The other thing that has to happen is a change of culture, which has started with this election maybe. We've always talked about change of political correctness and the change of political culture here. Maybe this election is the catalyst for people to start saying what they want to say. And the people who are running to the safe spaces and people who are being offended by what's being said, maybe it's time for them to actually be put in their place and say, no, you're the one that's moving this time. I think maybe if there's a change in the paradigm of culture, the political culture of America, which hopefully this election has done, maybe we'll start to see people participating in polls again and we'll start getting accurate numbers. I'm going to counter you a little bit on that one. Just a little bit. Because I absolutely believe that we have been taken to such an extreme that people are actually scared to speak, period, out of fear that someone is going to attack them for not having a view in line with theirs. But something that I have always believed and continue to believe even after the results of this election is that every American has the right to freedom of speech, to say what they wish without reprisal from the government or from undue or unjust treatment from the public in general. But the flip side of that is that there is also a responsibility that every American has to choose their words judiciously and to not be a provocateur for the sake of being a provocateur. And, there are figures on both the right and the left who I would point the finger to on that particular issue. And I don't think that they are a positive contribution to the society. I kind of put them on the same level as the fake news websites. So
Yes.
I'm hoping that this is the opportunity where you could actually have an open and honest dialogue, not the fake one that liberals have been talking about, but one where someone could actually say what they feel and not do so in fear.
You hit on the fake news websites, and they're all over the place, folks. They're on both sides of the spectrum. I think that this was the year where we may see a culling of partisan media coming up. This was the year it thrived in 2016. 2017 may be the culling, because you're going to start seeing a lot of these fake outlets being outed for what they are, and that's partisanship and propaganda. But in an election year, partisanship and propaganda is everybody's bread and butter. That's your milk and honey. So I think you're going to see a lot of them go away, but then they're going to come back and rearing their ugly head. How much damage to the credibility of media have these fake sites created?
I don't think it's so much the credibility of media as so much as it is the credibility of the people who spread and perpetuate them.
Right, but your average voter, though, is going to see something on their social media stream, and because it's written, authoritatively, they're going to think that it's legit. The average voter does not go to fact check. The average voter does not go to the AP. The average voter grabs information wherever they can because it agrees with their own personal outlook on life. In that respect, I don't think there's going to be a way to stop it. There's only a way to contain it, maybe. Social media is contributing to the degradation of mainstream media in good ways and in bad ways through these fake sites.
Well, I would also challenge that people need to stop wheelhousing their media to perspectives that they only agree with. I'm actually on my Facebook right now, and not 5 posts down from the top of the page, I have one of my friends who posted a link from WorldNet Daily reporting that Hillary Clinton was physically violent after losing the election.
Yes, this has been going around this week, and multiple sources are relying on a tweet from a radio show who claims to have an anonymous source that is a CNN reporter that told him, and you see the chain that I'm going through to even say this, that told him that Hillary Clinton was drunk, hysterical, and violent in the hotel room in preparation for making her what she wanted to be her victory speech before the speech happened. So again, but what happens is the anonymous source tells it to this radio show host. The radio show host puts it on Twitter. Second and third hand now, these partisan sites, and even Breitbart picked up on it too now, these partisan sites will pick up the story and link back to the article and not go back to the original source to see what the credibility of that source is. So if you saw it on Breitbart and it links to an article on, I think it's on American Federalist, you then go to the American Federalist and you have to see, okay, so what's the source from American Federalist? And they're going to link back to this tweet by this radio show host. And then you go to the tweet by the radio show host, and all it says is that CNN reporter, told me this. Doesn't identify it, doesn't source it, no direct quote, and this is relied on now by the masses. Millions of people have now seen this and think that this is actual news.
Well, it's also disappointing because, we don't have a Walter Cronkite anymore, do we?
No, we don't.
We don't have a media figure that you could turn to and say, I know whatever comes out of that person's mouth, I can believe it. I can trust it.
You know who was the last one that way for me? You know who was the last person like that for me? Peter Jennings from ABC. God rest his soul. He was the last one that I knew didn't have a dog in the fight and was actually just straight reporting. Tom Brokaw has ruined his legacy. Dan Rather, we know what happened to him. And now we have this next generation that all care about the cable revenue dollars. And that's all it is now.
And Gene, it's so funny that you say that because my last trusted anchor was broken this election. Bret Baier. Bret Baier was my Walter Cronkite. I would believe anything Bret Baier reported. I trusted him as an honest and a real newsman. 2 weeks before the election, Bret Baier had indicated that multiple sources in the FBI informed him that that indictment charges were going to come down over the Clinton server. And this was, mind you, this was right after the discovery of the Anthony Weiner laptop.
Oh, our buddy.
Yeah, our favorite friend on this show.
The gift that keeps on giving, but go ahead.
But Bret Baier reported to the world that there were going to be imminent charges, and I remember hearing this live on air and saying, oh my God, this is the break that we've all been waiting for concerning this, the Hillary Clinton email scandal, because I had such faith in Bret Baier. And then the next day he was on I think it was Fox and Friends or one of the Fox morning shows, and starts backpedaling some of his comments, saying that he shouldn't have phrased something a certain way. And then the next day it turned into an all-out retraction. And I was so heartbroken, Gene, because to me that was like the real loss of trust for me, that Bret Baier, who I had always considered to be a journalist, a newsman, was so focused on getting this really sensational story out there that he did it, and he lost sight of doing proper verification and vetting of the sources.
Did you turn into that commercial, that Axe commercial, starting to sing "I Need a Hero"? Was that you? You a little upset by that?
A little bit.
All right, listen, folks, we're at halftime here on the show. Actually, a little past halftime, but who cares? I'm Gene. She's Amanda. We're Behind Enemy Lines Radio. Thank you for listening to us. And while we got you listening, check us out at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you missed any part of this show, which we do live 10 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker, you can check us out at any one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC 107.5 FM in Jasper, Florida, WDDQ 92.1 FM in Adel, Georgia, both part of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network, who are flying high after this election cycle. A great, fantastic first year for Red Nation Rising Radio. You can also check us out on KLRN Radio, High Plains Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, ICRN, the Internet's conservative radio network, and Lanterns Radio. But if you miss us on any one of those rebroadcasts, you can always check us out on demand at iTunes, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podbay, Player FM, SoundCloud, discover us on Google Play Music, and of course, as always, on iHeartRadio. And more affiliates to come, Amanda.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah,
wait. Mouthful.
There's going to be more affiliates to come in the coming weeks and months, and in the new year as well. It's going to be huge. All right, so listen, we've spiked the football. We talked about the media. I love the comeuppance of the media, by the way. It's been fantastic. I love watching them suffer. And it's time now for Amanda and I to put our own transition team hats and start thinking about who we would want to see in a few of the key departments and agencies within the executive branch of the federal government. So, Amanda, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run down 4 of the major postings, being State, Defense, Homeland Security, and Attorney General, and then we're each going to get a bonus pick of whatever other office you can think of that you would want to fill, and go from there. So let's start out with Secretary of State. Obviously, there are 2 front runners right now that have been talked about. One being fellow alumni of mine, Manhattan College Jasper, and former mayor of New York City, Rudy Giuliani, and a former guest of the show, Ambassador John Bolton. What do you think about those 2, and should it be one of those 2, or should it be somebody else?
You know, Gene, I actually have 2 dark horse picks. Because I'm just going to preface this by saying that I believe that Trump is going to have a more balanced cabinet than anyone gives him credit for. So the 2 people I'm looking at is Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen from Florida. She's a representative of the 27th District and the former chairwoman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. The other dark horse I'm looking at, and this one's going to be really out of left field, Zalmay Khalilzad.
Who is that?
Zalmay Khalilzad was the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, the former U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, and the former U.S. ambassador to Iraq. He worked in the Bush administration.
Okay.
And I think, well, hear me out on this.
You hear the skepticism permeating through the microphone, don't you?
I do. But hear me out on this. And this goes back to what I said about I think Trump is going to have a more balanced cabinet than anyone gives me credit for. I think that from an optics perspective, it would go really far for Trump to have in arguably the most important cabinet post that he has, to put number one, a former Bush administration official, and number two, a Muslim.
And while the optics there are good, and I understand that, I think, with all due respect to my friend Ambassador Bolton, who I think is one of the smartest people when it comes to foreign policy, I think Rudy Giuliani is the pick. And the reason why...
Really?
And here's the reason why. There is not one leader who does not know Rudy Giuliani. Because of the rounds he made during 9/11. Because... I mean, the guy was knighted in England. He has he doesn't have the gravitas of John Bolton, but he has the trust of Donald Trump, which is important for Secretary of State because that's your chief diplomat. And he has the name value that is needed. Ambassador Bolton was really not so much in the inner circle, so I don't see him getting a key position like that. I see him getting a position, definitely, but not that one. I think Rudy's your pick. Now tear me apart. Go ahead.
No, you know what? I don't think it's insane, but I question why you would have Rudy in that particular cabinet position for the mere fact that he has no diplomatic background.
Well, because he already says that he's going to turn down Attorney General. That's what I would want him to be. That's why I'm going there. He said in the news this week that he would not want to be the Attorney General. So, there you go. Actually, let's move down the list. I see we had some disagreement there. You brought out some good dark horses there. Let's talk defense. Open it up for me. Who are your top two for Secretary of Defense?
Let me see. My top pick for Secretary of Defense, I am going to keep it a little bit of establishment. I'm going to say Senator Bob Corker, who is the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not talking about Corker. That's another posting. Actually, the person I want is both my fantasy pick and the person who I would love to see here in general. Retired Marine Corps General, and I know you know who I'm going to say.
The Mad Dog.
James Mattis. Mad Dog. James Mattis.
All right. Now, so that's but who do you honestly think is going to be the pick, though? I know that Mad Dog's your guy, and you've said it for a while now. But do you think that he'll be the one to get it?
No. That's just me, with my fantasy. I think realistically it's probably going to be General Flynn.
Yes, General Mike Flynn, yes.
Yeah. I think that Trump is going to really want someone who has recent military experience in that position, if he intends to prioritize fighting against ISIS in his administration.
Well, we're talking about, of course, he's a lieutenant. He was a retired lieutenant general, served as director of the DIA, commander of many different commands, including the Joint Functional Component Command for Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance. Boy, is that a mouthful. And chair of the Military Intelligence Board, very recently, 2012 to 2014. Great pick. I, on the other hand, have a couple of different ideas. I'm going to throw three names out to you. Name number one, Senator Tom Cotton. I think would be a great pick. Has that military and political experience. The second name, if you want to talk about balance and you want to show Democrats how you want to keep them in the fold, why not Jim Webb? Senator Jim Webb.
Interesting.
He wasn't he in the Department of Navy as well as being a U.S. Senator? I think that's a name you should throw out there. And finally, because I love him to death and he has racked up so many appearances on the show, I say Van Hipp, former Assistant Secretary of the Navy and of the Army, has his own civil defense firm in D.C., tremendous advisor. If he doesn't get the top job, he should definitely be one of the assistant secretaries in the Department of Defense somewhere. Those are my three. What do you think about those three? Let's start with Cotton first.
Safe pick.
You think it's too safe?
Safe pick, logical pick. I think the Jim Webb pick is very interesting.
I think it would be a great pick.
I'm wondering how Trump's base would take that pick, but I definitely think it's an interesting Mavericky pick.
Maverick. There you go. Maverick. You see, you're embracing your inner Palin. This is good. Okay.
And
what do you want to do next?
Of course, I love Van Hipp.
Yeah, Van Hip is such a good friend of this show. I remember last year at CPAC, just sitting and talking policy with him for an hour. It was like sitting in on an advanced graduate level class of governance.
Graduate level class, Gene. It was like having an intelligence briefing. It was amazing. I came out of that conversation feeling smarter for having been in proximity to this man.
Absolutely right. He's a treasure trove of knowledge, and we're happy to have him with the show.
Gene, I'm going to throw out one dark horse pick for you. That's along the lines of the Jim Webb pick. Undersecretary of the Army, Patrick Murphy.
Another great idea, thinking outside the box, someone who has that experience. I absolutely agree.
I think from a PR perspective, he had been a net positive while he was in his acting secretary capacity. It would be a great olive branch to the Democrats, but on Trump's terms, because it's something they have common ground on.
Absolutely. All right, so what do you want to do next? You want to do Homeland Security or Attorney General? Because we're running a little bit low on time. We got to do final thoughts and stuff. Which one do you want to do? Homeland Security or Attorney General next? Homeland. Okay. I think that the leading name on this one, I mean, listen, you can think Rudy, you can think Chris Christie, they'll be, tops on a bunch of different lists. But to me, Jeff Sessions is your guy. I think that Sessions, he helped with his views on immigration. He should be up for this position. I'm sure he's probably up for Defense Secretary as well. But I gotta think that Jeff Sessions fits Homeland Security like a glove.
I mean, also fair. I'm also of the school of thought that Rudy would be a good pick. If I had to do a non-obvious one like Rudy, I would actually say, Representative McCall.
Yep.
Who is the current chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee.
Out of Texas, that's right.
Yes. And of course I would be remiss if I did not throw out the name of the great Congressman Peter King from New York's 2nd Congressional District, former chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee.
Who has no relationship with Trump whatsoever, and I don't like him. So, no.
Well, you forget, I used to work for him.
I know.
I actually firmly believe there is not one bigger hawk when it comes to Homeland Security than Peter King. And I think if Trump is the businessman that he says he is, he would recognize that someone like Peter King, while he might have some degree of animosity towards him, might also recognize that this might be the person who could do the job the best.
What about bringing back someone like a Tom Ridge or a Michael Chertoff?
That would be interesting, but the question would be, would they be interested in leaving their private sector gigs now? Trump would have to do something to make it savory for them.
Okay. How about a dark horse pick then, Alan West?
It's not crazy, but I think the question would be, where are Alan West's ambitions right now? Does he want to run for office again, or would he be happy in a wonky position?
Again, these are the decisions that are being made. Finally, Attorney General. There are two names that I think of. One that I think it may be, and one that I think it must be. Okay?
Okay.
And the maybe name that's been thrown around, of course, is Chris Christie. I don't like it because he's embroiled in scandal right now with the convictions that happened in Bridgegate, and it might bring some tarnish to a new administration. But if I am in the room with Donald Trump and Mike Pence and Rudy Giuliani and everybody else on the transition team, there is only one name that can come up for me for Attorney General, and his name is Preet Bharara. That is the man who should, first of all, it throws a bone to the Democrats again. The man has shown, especially in his job as a, U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, that he can do the job against Republicans and Democrats alike, even-handed in the administration of justice. I think if the man is willing to take the job, I jump on it. Preet, please do it.
You know what, Gene? I'm not even going to throw out an alternative pick because that is so inspired. Please, President Trump, pick Preet Bharara. Please.
There you go. I think that would be the best pick possible. Do you see how many different we have a corruption clock on our website at www.behindamylinesradio.us because of Preet Bharara. Because he's put so many politicians in jail.
I mean, do you realize it's been 9 days since our last conviction?
Conviction, arrest, whatever it is. I think it was arrest. Yes, it was an arrest, the last one. But we reset the clock every time there's an arrest, indictment, a conviction, every time at our website. So check it out. We put up stories all the time about it. But yes, Preet Bharara. Bharara should be Attorney General. I don't care about party, I care about governing. And I think Donald Trump has seen him up close, and I think it would work.
And not only that, Gene, Preet is a Democrat. And I want to pose
He's a Chuck Schumer Democrat. That's the thing. He was trained with Chuck Schumer.
No, but Gene, I want to pose a question to our listeners. What does it say that two Republicans on two different ends of the political spectrum of conservatism both agree that this man would be perfect for the job? A Democrat. That's how good this guy is at doing his job and being fair and objective. This would be the dream pick.
All right. And finally, do you have... Okay, let's go through our bonus one now. Do you have anybody for bonus? Pick an office and tell me who you want there.
Gene, I'm not even going to pick an office. Just any way that we can have General James Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis, anywhere in this administration, and I will be a happy girl.
All right. Here's my bonus, and let's go through it. Ready?
Okay.
Secretary of the Interior, Sarah Palin.
Oh, no.
Yes, and here's why. What does the Secretary of the Interior deal with primarily?
Energy and natural resources.
And national parks. Who else would know better about our national parks, our natural resources, our land management better than Sarah Palin? It will diffuse a lot of the issues in, the western part of the country with, what was the guy's name? The Bundy Ranch people dealing with them. I think Sarah Palin would be fantastic with national parks and public lands. Perfect position for her. It keeps her in the administration. It keeps her out of the spotlight. And that's kind of the end of it right there. It's a perfect spot for her.
Gene, I ate a lot of crow this episode, but I do have my limits.
And that being said, it's time for some final thoughts. Boy, that hour went quickly. Thanks for everybody for listening. Amanda Cohut, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you on social media to hear more of your wonderful musings and discussions of politics and other topics as well. Mets, everything.
Guys,
let's go Mets.
Guys, if you want to read about Mets baseball, politics, General James Mattis, and may he rest in peace, my love, Bartolo Colon, you can find me on the Twitters at Amanda, Kohut, Cohut.
All right, final thought time, go.
All right, this one's to my fellow rhinos out there and to also the liberals. Speaking directly to you right now. We have learned a lesson this election. Us establishment types were disconnected from the mainstream of America. And I recognize that on election night. And Gene and Russ and the whole gang were around me, and they could tell you that I was contrite and humble because I understood what these elections mean, and I saw it as a fault on my interpretation of America and not of the voters. But I still see people out there that are still in denial, that are still lobbing all these insults at Trump's voters and trying to legitimize their vote and the Trump presidency. Don't do that. Keep your ears open. Listen to what people have to say. Just listen. Now is the time to rectify your mistakes.
All right. A very humble Amanda Cohut. I appreciate the introspection and the honest evaluation that you've been doing these past couple of weeks. It's very nice to see, and that's why we love you on the show, because unlike the mainstream media and everybody else, you can admit that I need to take a step back and reevaluate, and that's very cool of you to do. Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. My final thought tonight, folks. I'm going to bring this one home a little bit. I was listening to another radio show that starts with an L and ends with Aura Ingram. And on that show was a professor from my college, from Manhattan College, that I'm an alumni of, that Rudy Giuliani is an alumni of. And the discussion is whether professors at my college are being too liberal to students, that there are reports that students who are conservative want to transfer because they do not feel safe in exchanging their views. This deeply disturbs me, and I hope it's not true. And I can tell you from my Manhattan experience that the government professors there were more than happy to allow students to find themselves and their political voice. I had a professor that was as liberal as you can get, Dr. Winsome Downey. I love her to death. Absolute liberal. Made it her mission to try to turn me into a liberal. Couldn't do it. She respected my growth as a student, as a person, and look where I am now on a show like this. You can be liberal and a professor as long as you respect the education process. And if there are professors at my school that are not doing it, well, then I'm just going to have to call my alumni office and have to say something about that. All right, folks, that's it for the show. Amanda, you ready to shut this sucker down?
Shut this mofo down, Gene.
All right. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Next week, we'll see if we can get Gallo back. And be on the lookout, folks. Buffoon of the Year coming up soon. But until then, from the People's Republic of New York City, we are out of here. Good night, folks.
Our position's been compromised. It's time to roll out. Report for debriefing at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. And look for regular communications via Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio. You are the resistance. Behind Enemy Lines. A Rock Radio production. Copyright 2016. Back in 7 days. Out.